The twin suns of Zithra burned bright above the royal city, their golden light shining on towers made of black crystal and silver steel. Alien banners fluttered across the wide courtyards, showing the sigil of the Zitharian Empire, an empire proud, powerful, and ruled by queens. In that city lived one of the few humans ever allowed inside the royal palace. His name was Ethan Ward, a simple maintenance worker. Every day he fixed power lines, checked oxygen vents, and cleaned the shining walls that seemed to look down on him. To most Zitharians he was invisible, to a few he was an object of curiosity, but to all he was a servant. Humans were considered weak on Zithra, fragile, slow, a mistake of nature that somehow survived the galaxy's dangers. Ethan had learned to keep his head down, speak softly, and never argue with the towering alien women who ruled this world. But that day was different. The royal courtyard was full of laughter and music. The air smelled of perfume and polished metal. Alien nobles in armor and silk robes stood around the central fountain, where a young alien princess, Princess Lysara, was speaking nervously to the guards. She was tall and graceful, her skin faintly blue like moonlight, her hair braided in silver threads that shimmered with energy. She was still learning how to rule, still soft-hearted in a world that admired strength above kindness. Ethan was nearby, fixing a broken lighting node when he heard the sound of raised voices. "Your Highness, you should not speak that way before the council," one of the guards said harshly. "It is not your place to question the Queen's commands." Lysara frowned. "I only asked why the humans in the outer colonies are denied food rations. They work for us. They deserve—" "Deserve?" The guard laughed cruelly. "They are pets, not citizens." Ethan froze. His hands tightened on the wrench he held. He knew that tone. He had heard it before, mocking, arrogant, and cold. "Enough," Lysara said, standing tall. "I am the daughter of Queen Malith. You will speak with respect." The guards exchanged looks. One of them smirked. "Respect? Maybe the princess should learn her place before teaching others theirs." The others laughed. Lysara's eyes flashed with anger, but she was outnumbered. Ethan saw her trembling hands, her voice quivering. The guards took a step closer, surrounding her, still laughing like wolves. Something inside Ethan broke. He dropped the wrench and stepped forward without thinking. His voice cut through the laughter. "Leave her alone." The guards turned. Silence fell. For a long second, no one spoke. The aliens stared in disbelief at the small human standing before them. Short, scarred, dressed in a gray maintenance uniform, his hands shaking slightly but his eyes steady. "What did you say, human?" One of them hissed. "I said," Ethan repeated, his voice louder. "Leave her alone. She's your princess." The laughter returned, sharper this time. "You dare command us?" said the tallest guard, her armor plates clicking as she stepped closer. "Do you think your human body can survive even one strike from me?" Ethan didn't move. "I don't care. You shouldn't treat her like that." Princess Lysara's eyes widened. "Stop. Don't," he didn't mean, but it was too late. The first blow came like lightning. The guard's armored hand struck Ethan across the face, throwing him to the ground. The crowd gasped. The music stopped. Ethan tasted blood. His vision blurred, but he forced himself up. The second guard kicked him in the stomach. Pain shot through his ribs. He fell again, coughing, unable to breathe. Still, he looked up and smiled weakly. "You hit like a scared child," he said through broken breath. That made them angrier. The guards surrounded him and began to beat him. Fists, boots, armor slamming against fragile human skin. The sound of each hit echoed across the courtyard. Aliens whispered among themselves. None dared interfere. Humans were property here, and no one cared if one was destroyed. But Princess Lysara cared. "Stop," she screamed, her voice breaking. "You will stop now." The guards ignored her, driven by pride and anger. Ethan fell again, his arms covering his face, ribs cracking under the pressure. The ground beneath him turned red with his blood. Lysara ran forward, grabbing one of the guards by the arm. "I order you, stop." The guard hesitated, then pushed the princess away roughly. She stumbled and fell, hitting the ground beside Ethan. That was the moment that silenced everything. Ethan saw her fall. He could barely see through his swollen eyes, but his body moved on instinct. He crawled forward, placing himself between her and the guards. His voice was hoarse, broken, but filled with something stronger than fear. "You'll have to go through me first." The courtyard went still. Even the guards froze. The human's body trembled, his back bleeding, his face covered in bruises. Yet he stood on his knees, shielding the princess with his body. Lysara stared at him in shock. No alien, not even her own royal guards, had ever done such a thing for her. You fool, she whispered, tears in her eyes. You'll die for this, Ethan smiled weakly. Better me than you. Then he collapsed. Hours later, Ethan woke to the sound of humming machines. He was lying on a medical bed made of glowing crystal. Cold liquid ran through tubes into his veins. His body ached everywhere. He tried to move, but felt the pain rush back like fire. A soft voice spoke from nearby. Don't move. You're lucky to be alive. Ethan turned his head slowly. It was Princess Lysara. She looked different now, her royal jewelry removed, her face pale and worried. You saved me, she said quietly. Why? Ethan tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. I didn't save you. I just stopped a few bullies. Her silver eyes softened. You didn't have to. They could have killed you. I know, he said. But it was wrong. Someone had to say it. Lysara stared at him for a long moment. The words were simple, but they carried a weight she had never felt before. In her world, strength came from rank, armor, and power. But this broken human spoke of something else, of courage without reason, of kindness without reward. You are strange, human, she said. Most would have run. Most humans do, Ethan said with a faint smile. But sometimes running makes you lose something worse than your life. She didn't fully understand his meaning, but she felt it. She stood and placed a small crystal beside his bed. This will speed your recovery. I will make sure no one harms you again. As she turned to leave, Ethan's voice stopped her. Thank you, princess. She hesitated, then said softly, My name is Lysara. Meanwhile, in the upper chambers of the palace, whispers spread fast. Did you hear? A human defied the guards. They say he stood up for the princess herself. And survived? Barely. Queen Malith, ruler of Zythera, sat upon her throne of crystal and metal as her advisors reported the strange event. She was tall, majestic, and feared across the stars. Her golden armor gleamed beneath the throne lights, her voice calm and cold. A human servant interfered with royal guards? She asked slowly. Yes, your majesty, replied a court advisor. He was beaten nearly to death. The princess ordered him treated in the royal ward. The queen's golden eyes narrowed. And this human, he still lives? Yes, my queen. He refused to beg for mercy even under punishment. Malith leaned back in her throne. Interesting. Her voice was soft, but everyone in the room felt the air grow heavy. The queen had ruled for decades. She had seen countless species, warriors, scholars, kings, but never a human who dared defy her kind. To challenge Zytherian soldiers was madness, yet this human had done it without hesitation. She looked out the high window, watching the twin suns sink behind the horizon. Bring me his record, she said. I want to know who he is, the advisor bowed. At once, my queen. When the queen was alone, she whispered to herself, a fragile species that chooses death over silence. What drives such a creature? She did not know then that her curiosity would soon turn into something far deeper. Back in the medical wing, Ethan drifted in and out of sleep. He saw flashes of light, shadows of aliens standing around him, their faces unreadable. In his dreams, he saw Earth, the blue sky, the green fields, his mother's voice calling him to dinner. He missed it, yet he knew he could never return. He was a worker on an alien world now, a nameless man in a sea of giants. But for the first time, he felt something change in the air. Maybe, just maybe, his small act had meant something. As the lights dimmed and the night came, Princess Lysara stood by his bed once more. She watched the human who had bled for her. She touched his hand gently. Sleep well, Ethan Ward, she whispered. The queen will hear of you soon, and when she does, I don't know whether it will save you or destroy you. The machines hummed softly. Outside, the palace glittered under the twin moons, unaware that a simple human had just shaken the order of an empire. The morning sun of Zythera rose over the palace, turning its silver walls golden. Servants rushed through long halls, machines hummed, and alien nobles began another day of luxury and command. But deep inside the royal medical wing, a human lay awake, staring at the glowing ceiling. Ethan Ward was still sore. His ribs ached when he breathed. His right eye was swollen and his left arm was wrapped in alien healing cloth. Yet he was alive, and that itself felt like a small miracle. He remembered flashes from the beating. The guard's laughter, the sharp pain, the princess's voice screaming for them to stop. And then darkness. Now only silence surrounded him, broken by the soft sound of medical drones floating near his bed. When the door slid open, Ethan turned his head slowly. It was Princess Lysara, dressed not in royal silks but in a plain robe. She looked tired, but when she saw him awake, her face softened with relief. "You're awake," she said softly. "Barely," Ethan joked weakly. "Feels like I got hit by a ship." Lysara smiled faintly. "You almost did. The guards were punished for disobeying my direct command." Ethan blinked. "Punished? Because of me?" She nodded. "They went too far, even by our laws. But there are others who think you went too far. You're lucky to still be breathing." Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Luck or your kindness?" Lysara hesitated, looking at him seriously. "Ethan, do you understand what you did? You stood against trained Zetharian guards. That's not bravery here, it's rebellion. And if the queen..." Before she could finish, the door opened again. A tall alien soldier in golden armor entered, her posture stiff. She bowed slightly to the princess, but ignored Ethan completely. "Her Majesty Queen Malith requests the human's presence," the soldier said coldly. Lysara froze. "The queen now?" "Yes, immediately." Ethan sat up slowly, wincing in pain. "The queen wants to see me?" "For what?" The soldier didn't answer. She only said, "Refusing a royal summon is death." Lysara turned pale. "He's still weak. He can't even walk properly." "I will help him," the soldier said, her tone hard. "By order of the throne." Ethan looked at the princess and tried to smile. "Guess I don't have much choice." Lysara clenched her fists. "Be careful, Ethan. My mother..." "She's not like me." Ethan nodded quietly. "I figured." The walk to the queen's chamber felt endless. 2 guards escorted him through the towering palace halls. Every alien they passed stared at him, some with disgust, some with curiosity. A few whispered as he limped by. "Is that the human who defied the royal guard? He should have been executed. Why would the queen waste her time on him?" Ethan ignored them all. He focused on his steps, on the strange rhythm of the alien boots beside him. The palace was beautiful but cold. Walls of glowing metal, floors that shimmered like glass, air that smelled faintly of ozone. Everything was perfect, yet it felt lifeless. When they reached the massive doors of the throne chamber, Ethan stopped. 2 enormous golden statues of past queens flanked the entrance. Their eyes glowed faintly, as if watching him. The doors opened with a deep hum. Inside, the throne hall of Malith stretched for hundreds of meters. A long carpet of crimson light led to the raised dais where Queen Malith sat on a throne, carved from black crystal. She was tall and regal, her armor gleaming like liquid gold, her crown of silver spikes catching the sunlight, her eyes, sharp and golden, locked on Ethan the moment he entered. The guards pushed him forward until he stood alone in the center of the hall. Hundreds of alien nobles lined the walls, watching in silence. The air was heavy, full of judgment. "Step closer," the queen's voice echoed. It was calm, yet powerful enough to make the walls vibrate. Ethan swallowed hard and stepped forward. His knees shook slightly, but he refused to kneel. He stood as straight as his beaten body allowed. "So," the queen said slowly, "you are the human who thought himself a protector of royal blood." Ethan didn't speak at first. He wasn't sure what she wanted to hear. Finally, he said quietly, "I only did what was right." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Right? Do you understand the word you use, human? On Zithara, right and wrong are decided by those with power." Ethan met her gaze. "Maybe. But where I come from, doing nothing when someone's in danger is worse than dying." A few of the alien nobles gasped at his words. One whispered, "He speaks back to the queen." Malith raised a hand, silencing them. She rose from her throne and walked down the steps slowly, her armor shimmering with every movement. She stopped just a few feet away from Ethan, towering over him. He had to tilt his head up to meet her eyes. "You would risk death," she said softly. "For someone not of your kind?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "Why?" Ethan hesitated, then said, "Because it was wrong to hurt her." "And because someone had to stop it." The queen studied him in silence. Around them, the hall was so quiet that Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. Then, to everyone's shock, Queen Malith laughed. It wasn't cruel, more like disbelief mixed with fascination. "Strange creature," she said finally. "Your body is fragile, your species untrained, yet your mind..." Refuses to break, she turned to the nobles. Tell me, how many of you would have acted if it were you in that courtyard? No one answered. Heads bowed. Eyes avoided hers. The queen's gaze returned to Ethan. You see? Even my strongest warriors fear shame more than injustice. You are either a fool or something far more dangerous. Ethan gave a tired half smile. Probably both. That made her lips curve slightly. Perhaps. She circled him like a predator studying prey. What is your name, human? Ethan Ward. Occupation? Maintenance engineer. I fix things. Maleth's eyes glinted. It seems you fix more than machines. There was quiet laughter among the nobles, unsure if the queen was amused or angry. Then her tone changed. You will not return to the lower worker quarters. Ethan blinked. What? You will serve under my direct watch within the Royal Guard's compound. Your actions have disturbed the balance of the palace. I will decide whether you are a threat or an asset. Ethan hesitated. So I'm not being executed? The queen's smile was thin but real. Not yet. The guard stepped forward. By your command, Majesty. Maleth raised a hand. Wait. She walked closer again, lowering her voice so only he could hear. You intrigue me, human. You act without fear, yet you know the cost. Tell me, what drives you? Loyalty? Love? Or something else? Ethan met her gaze. I don't know. Maybe I just hate bullies. The queen stared at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Then let us see if your hatred can serve a higher purpose. She turned away, her cloak flowing behind her like liquid light. Take him to the guard quarters. Feed him, heal him, and make sure he understands that defiance in my court is tolerated only because I allow it. Yes, my queen, the guards said in unison. As they led Ethan out, the queen watched him leave, her golden eyes thoughtful. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar, curiosity mixed with respect. A human of all creatures had faced her power and spoken truth without trembling. When the chamber emptied, Maleth stood by the window overlooking the city. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, but her mind was storming. Why does he not fear me? She whispered to herself. What makes his heart so unyielding? In the guard compound, Ethan was given a small room, a step above the worker quarters, but still plain. He sat on the bed, touching the healing marks on his arms. He should have been afraid. Instead, he felt strangely calm. That's when the door opened again. Princess Lysara entered quietly. She wore a dark cloak hiding her royal crest. I heard what happened, she said. You're under my mother's command now, so I'm her. What, prisoner? Not exactly, Lysara said softly. She's curious about you. That can be good or bad, Ethan chuckled. That's comforting, she stepped closer. Ethan, you don't understand. My mother doesn't get curious. She conquers, commands, destroys. If she's keeping you alive, it's because she wants to learn something from you. Then I'll give her something worth learning, Ethan said simply. Lysara stared at him, then smiled faintly. You really are different, he shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe your people just forgot what kindness looks like. Her smile faded. Be careful saying that. Many won't forgive you for standing against them. I've been hated before, he said. Doesn't change what's right. For a moment they stood in silence. Then Lysara placed something on the table beside him, a small silver device. This will call me if you're in danger. I can't protect you openly, but I owe you my life. Ethan looked at her, gratitude in his tired eyes. You don't owe me anything, princess, she shook her head. Yes, I do. You changed something in me, and now maybe in my mother too. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Ethan, she will test you. Don't let her break you, he smiled faintly. I don't break easy. Later that night, Queen Maleth sat alone in her chamber, reviewing battle reports. Yet her mind kept drifting back to the human's words. Someone had to stop it. For a ruler who had seen galaxies burn, those words were unsettling. Outside, lightning flashed across the alien sky. Somewhere in the palace, a human who should have died now rested in her protection. And though she would never admit it, Queen Maleth could feel it. Something had begun to change inside her, something she couldn't yet name. The days passed slowly in the palace. Ethan Ward moved through the halls carefully, every step reminding him of the pain still lingering in his body. His ribs ached when he bent, his face bore purple bruises, and every minor bump sent a jolt of discomfort through him. Yet, for the first time in his life, he felt noticed, not as a servant, not as a human nobody, but as someone who had done something that mattered. Princess Lysara often visited him. She brought simple food, helped him stretch, and occasionally just sat quietly, letting him speak about Earth and humans. Ethan had begun to realize that she wasn't just a fragile princess. She was curious, brave, and frustrated with a system that demanded obedience over justice. In return, she seemed fascinated by him, not just for his courage but for his perspective, his insistence on right over rule. But it was Queen Malith who truly unsettled him. Every day he could feel her presence as a silent shadow, watching him from afar, studying every move, every word. The Queen had ordered him to report to her for small tasks, tests that seemed trivial yet were designed to gauge his courage, his mind, and perhaps even his loyalty. One morning, Ethan was led into the Queen's strategy chamber, a massive room filled with glowing holographic maps of Zithera and its neighboring systems. Soldiers moved around, updating positions of fleets, planetary defenses, and communication arrays. "Human," the Queen said from her throne at the far end of the room. Her golden eyes glimmered with curiosity. "You will advise us. A fleet from the Virelians approaches our borders. How should we defend against them?" Ethan blinked. Humans were engineers and thinkers, but he had never commanded armies, certainly not alien ones. Yet he noticed gaps in their defense. Weak patrols, vulnerable supply lines, slow reaction systems. His mind raced. "You're asking me?" he said carefully. I can suggest a few things based on movement patterns, timing, and predicting the enemy's likely choices." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Speak." Ethan pointed at the holographic map. "If you place your fleets here and here, covering the supply routes and the orbital lanes simultaneously, the Virelians will struggle to penetrate without heavy losses. You should use smaller strike ships as decoys in one quadrant, and reserve your main fleet in the other. It will give you control and reduce risk." The chamber fell silent. Even her generals stared at him with disbelief. "You are suggesting tactics," one muttered. "From a human?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "Because I've learned to anticipate moves before they happen. Not all humans are weak. Some of us survive because we think differently." The Queen stepped closer. "Interesting." She circled him, her eyes sharp as a blade. "You think like a commander, not like a servant."
Do you know why that frightens me?
Ethan shook his head. "I don't, because you act without fear. You are small, fragile, unarmed, and yet you dare advise rulers and generals as if your life matters." Her voice softened, almost a whisper. "In my world, that is dangerous." "I'm still alive," Ethan said quietly, trying not to flinch. "So maybe it isn't that dangerous." Malith's lips curved into a faint smile. "Perhaps, but I must test you further." The following days became a series of challenges. The Queen assigned him tasks that seemed impossible for a human. Coordinating alien engineers in zero gravity, recalibrating defense systems with code no human had ever seen, and walking among hostile council members who would rather see him dead than alive. Every time he completed a task, he earned grudging respect from some and envy from others. The alien nobles whispered behind closed doors, "Who does she think he is? A human cannot be worthy of her attention. He survives where others fail. He is strange." Perhaps the Queen has lost her mind. Yet the Queen observed silently, noting every decision, every reaction, every flicker of hesitation or confidence. She wanted to see how far this human's resolve could stretch. She wanted to know if courage alone could shape a creature so small in a world ruled by strength. Ethan, despite his pain and fear, refused to bow, not physically, not emotionally. He spoke freely, asked questions, and refused orders that he considered unfair or cruel. The other humans in the palace watched him with awe. The aliens were confused. No one had ever dared defy a Zitharian queen and survived. One evening, after a long day of strategy exercises, Ethan sat in a quiet corner of the palace courtyard. The twin moons of Zithera hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the black crystal walls. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, savoring the rare calm. "You've done well today," a voice said softly. He opened his eyes to see Princess Lysara standing near him, her cloak brushing the stone floor. "Even the Queen seems impressed," Ethan smiled weakly. "Impressed? Or confused?" Lysara laughed softly. "Maybe both. You're not like anything she's seen before." "I just do what I think is right," Ethan said. "I don't see why that should surprise anyone." Lysara sat beside him. "It surprises everyone here, including me, sometimes." I wonder, Ethan, why do you never give up even when it's dangerous? He shrugged. Because someone has to. I can't just watch and do nothing. If that's weakness to your people, maybe it's strength to mine. Lysera's eyes glimmered with admiration. You really are different. Strange, but strong. Ethan chuckled faintly, wincing as he shifted his arm. I'm also stubborn. That counts for something, right? You're more than stubborn, she said quietly. You are fearless in a way we don't understand. The following week brought real danger. Scouts reported that the Virilian fleet had breached the outer orbitals of Zythera. Alarm sirens rang through the palace. Soldiers rushed to stations. The Queen summoned Ethan immediately. You will join the War Council, she said, and you will advise me without hesitation. Ethan nodded. He studied the maps, the incoming signals, the movement of ships. He gave precise orders, suggested defensive formations, and predicted Virilian maneuvers. To the shock of the Zytherian generals, his strategies worked. During the first wave of attacks, Ethan moved from station to station, fixing damaged communications, coordinating smaller squadrons, and guiding reinforcements to weak points. His human intuition and understanding of strategy saved countless lives. Even Princess Lysera fought beside him, piloting a defense ship to protect the orbital docks. She glanced at Ethan repeatedly, amazed at how calmly he worked despite being human, fragile, and outnumbered by alien soldiers. The battle raged for hours. Explosions rocked the orbitals. Ships burned and twisted in the vacuum of space. Yet through every challenge, Ethan remained steadfast, barking orders, fixing errors, and protecting those in immediate danger. By the end of the day, the Virilians retreated, their fleet shattered and in chaos. The Zytherian Empire had survived, and it was largely thanks to the human who refused to bow. That evening, Queen Maleth summoned him to the balcony of her chamber. The city below was quiet now, the fires of battle replaced by soft glows of palace lights. You have proven something remarkable, the Queen said quietly, standing beside him. Unlike before, she did not tower over him in armor. She was closer to Lysera's size now, but her presence still commanded attention. You have survived where my strongest warriors would have failed. Ethan, exhausted, merely nodded. I just did what I thought was right. Maleth studied him. And yet, you did not fear me. Not once. You do not bend. You do not tremble. That is unsettling. He gave a small, tired smile. I've been beaten before. Fear doesn't always help. The Queen's golden eyes softened. You are unlike any being I have ever known. Small, fragile, and yet the unbroken. Tell me, human, do you ever stop? Do you ever think of your own life before you risk it? Ethan shook his head. Sometimes. But never when someone else's life is at stake. I can't, not when I know I can help. Maleth nodded slowly. For the first time, she felt a strange pull toward him. Not desire, not ownership, but fascination. She had ruled an empire for centuries, had seen countless warriors and generals rise and fall, yet this human challenged everything she knew about strength. You will remain under my observation, she said finally, not as a servant, not as a prisoner, but as something else. I do not yet know what. Perhaps an advisor. Perhaps a shield. Perhaps something more. Ethan nodded quietly. As long as I live, I will do my best. You will do more than survive, Maleth said softly, almost to herself. You will change us all. That night, as Ethan returned to his quarters, Princess Lysera awaited him. She smiled faintly. You've done more than fight today, Ethan. You've proven your worth. Not just to me, but to my mother. That is dangerous. I know, Ethan said, sitting down on his small bed. But I'm not afraid. I don't have much choice in this place anyway. Lysera laughed softly.
Still, you are human.
We are not used to your kind being fearless. My mother will want to test you more. Much more, Ethan shrugged. Then I guess I'll just have to keep standing. Lysera placed a hand on his shoulder. You are changing this palace, Ethan, and I can't tell yet if it's for the better, or if you will pay dearly. He smiled faintly. Then I guess we'll find out together. The twin moons of Zythera shone through the windows, silver light spilling across the palace walls. Outside, the Empire slept unaware that one small human, beaten, bruised yet unbroken, had begun to reshape its future. Inside the palace, both Princess and Queen watched him in their own ways, their thoughts tangled with admiration, curiosity, and a hint of fear. For the first time the horizon of Zythera was aflame with the red glow of war. Alien ships patrolled the skies, their hulls gleaming beneath the light of the twin suns while distant explosions lit up the clouds as the Virelians launched their first attacks. Sirens echoed through the palace, signaling danger, chaos, and the uncertain future of the Zytharian Empire. Ethan Ward had barely slept. His ribs still throbbed from the previous beatings. His face bore faint bruises that had yet to fade. And yet, he moved through the Royal Command Center as if the weight of his own body didn't matter. Every holographic display, every map, every blinking light represented lives that depended on him. And for the first time in his life, he felt his actions truly mattered. Princess Lysara was already there, hovering over a control console, her silver hair shimmering in the dim light. Her eyes were sharp, filled with determination. She glanced at Ethan. "We've lost 2 orbital outposts already. The Virelians are faster than we predicted." Ethan leaned over the holographic map. "Not faster. Predictable. They think we will defend in straight lines, rely on our usual patrols. They don't know we can strike where they least expect." Lysara raised an eyebrow. "And where would that be?" Ethan pointed to a narrow gap between 2 asteroids near Zithra's outer orbit. "Use the small strike ships there. They'll assume we're regrouping, but we can ambush their fleet with faster, smaller craft. Keep the main fleet hidden in the orbital shadow. They'll never see it coming." Lysara studied the plan, then nodded. "It's risky. If we fail—" "I know," Ethan said calmly. "But if we succeed, we save thousands." Hours later, the fleet assembled. Ethan was not a pilot, not a general by any Zytharian standard, but the Queen had assigned him a command role nonetheless. He stood on the bridge of a sleek command cruiser, monitors glowing with enemy movement, and pointed at tactical positions. "Deploy strike ships to Quadrant 7, he ordered. "Reserve the main fleet in the shadow. Coordinate the orbital defense drones to follow my signal patterns. Keep communication encrypted. Virelians are listening." The Zytharian admirals hesitated. Humans did not command fleets. Humans did not survive in war. And yet Ethan's confidence, quiet and firm, left no room for doubt. Queen Malith appeared beside him, her presence massive even in the confined space of the bridge. Her golden eyes studied him closely. "Do not fail," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper that cut through the hum of machinery. "Failure is unacceptable," Ethan nodded. "I won't." The first wave of Virelian ships appeared over the horizon, their massive forms casting shadows across the orbital defenses. Explosions erupted as the aliens attempted their initial assault. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and soldiers scrambled to stations. Ethan moved quickly. "Now, strike ships deploy. Flank the left quadrant." Small nimble vessels darted from their hiding positions between asteroids, firing plasma torpedoes and lasers at the Virelians' flanks. The enemy, expecting a straight attack, hesitated. Their formation wavered. Lysara piloted a strike ship herself, her hands steady on the controls. She glanced at Ethan through the screen. "I never thought a human could command this effectively," she admitted. He shrugged. "I'm not commanding, I'm observing, predicting. Humans have been fighting like this for centuries. You just have to see the pattern." The battle escalated. A Virelian cruiser broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the palace orbitals. Ethan didn't panic. He calculated the trajectory, then gave orders. "Orbital drones intercept at coordinates 1422-7. Strike ships, cover the rear. Placera, you block the cruiser's escape path." The Virelians didn't see the human calculations coming. Their cruiser was caught in a crossfire between strike ships and automated drones, tearing it apart before it could reach the palace. The palace shook with the impact. Alarms blared again, but Ethan remained calm, moving from console to console, adjusting, predicting, and directing. Every action saved lives. Queen Malith watched silently, her thoughts tangled. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, insignificant, and yet here was one who not only survived but shaped the outcome of a massive battle. "You are remarkable," she whispered to herself, a faint trace of admiration in her tone. Hours turned into days. The Virelians pushed harder, launching wave after wave of attacks. Ethan hardly slept, his body screaming for rest, but he continued to coordinate the defense. Every mistake corrected, every ship guided, every calculation refined. He moved between consoles like a shadow, giving clear, calm orders, even as explosions shook the orbital stations. Soldiers began to respect him. Some whispered among themselves, "Human." Alive through all this? Look at him. He doesn't fear death. Maybe. He's the key to this defense. Lysara stayed close to him the entire time. Each attack, each maneuver, she witnessed the same quiet brilliance that had first impressed her. She noticed his small acts, adjusting a drone's path by hand, physically repairing a damaged console under fire, shouting orders to save panicked soldiers. During one brutal moment, an enemy plasma strike hit a key command console. Sparks flew, smoke filled the room. Ethan didn't flinch. He dove through the smoke, fingers working to reconnect wires and override the failing system. Lysara reached him in time to stabilize a burning panel. "Are you crazy?" she yelled. "You could die." "I've been hit worse," he said, ignoring the flames licking near his arm. "We don't have time to be afraid." By the third day, the tide of battle had shifted. Virilians had lost nearly half their fleet. The Zytharian defenses were intact, largely thanks to the humans' planning and quick thinking. Queen Malith summoned him again. She stood on the palace balcony overlooking the orbital war above. Ethan, still bruised and exhausted, was led to her side. "You have saved Zithra," she said, her golden eyes sharp yet thoughtful. "And you have done so as a human, untrained, fragile, and unarmed against the enemy." Ethan nodded quietly. "I just did what I could." "You did more than that," she said softly. "You saved lives that even my strongest warriors could not, and you risked yourself repeatedly." Her gaze lingered on his scarred face, the tired set of his shoulders, and the determination in his eyes. "For that I owe you something." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had faced death countless times in this week. Yet hearing the Queen admit any acknowledgement felt surreal. "You will recover under my care," she continued, "and from this day forward you will not be treated as a mere human servant. You are my shield, my advisor, and something else. That I will decide later." That night in his quarters, Ethan finally sat exhausted. Lysara joined him quietly, leaning against the wall. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "Even my mother. She's thinking differently now." Ethan rubbed his face. "I've just done my best. That's all anyone can do." She studied him, her eyes filled with admiration and something deeper he could not name. "No one has ever faced the Queen without fear, human. You inspire things here that haven't existed for centuries." Ethan gave a faint smile. "I'm not trying to inspire anyone, I can't stand by while people get hurt." Lysara's hand brushed against his. "That's exactly why you're human, and why you're dangerous." Ethan looked at her, tired but steady. "If changing things is dangerous, then I guess I'll just have to accept it." In the days that followed, the palace settled after the first wave of battle. Repairs began, soldiers returned to their posts, and the Virilians regrouped far beyond the edge of Zythera's reach. Queen Malith summoned Ethan once more. She stood before him, not in battle armor, but in a flowing golden robe, regal and commanding. "Ethan Ward, you have proven that courage, intellect, and resolve are not bound by size, species, or strength. You have earned a place in my palace and in my plans. Do you understand what that means?" Ethan nodded quietly. "I understand." "Good," she said. "But know this. The Empire watches you. Every ally, every enemy, and not all will accept a human in a position of power." "I don't expect them to," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I only expect to do what's right." The Queen's eyes glimmered, a rare softness there. "Then perhaps we are alike in that, after all." Outside, the city of Zythera glittered beneath twin moons, peaceful for the moment. Yet in the shadows of the palace, whispers began, of a human who survived impossible odds, commanded alien fleets, and refused to bow to queens or nobles. And within the palace, two women, one a princess, one a queen, watched the human closely. Each had begun to see him not as fragile, not as lesser, but as something extraordinary. Ethan Ward had survived the beating for a princess. Now he had survived the fires of war, and in doing so he had changed the empire itself. The palace of Zythera was quiet, almost impossibly so. The twin moons reflected off the black crystal towers, bathing the city in silver light. After weeks of chaos, war, and fear, the empire had finally found a fragile calm. Yet for Ethan Ward, peace had not come. The Queen's summons arrived at dawn. A messenger floated through the corridors with silent precision, delivering a single crystal tablet. Ethan read the message. "Appear before me in the throne chamber. Your service, courage, and loyalty have been noted. The choice of your fate rests with me." He swallowed, feeling the weight of the words. The Queen had watched him survive beatings, command fleets, and endure the impossible. Now she would decide his future. Princess Lysara appeared at his door. Her eyes glimmered with concern. "Ethan, whatever happens, stay calm. Remember why you acted from the start. Your courage brought you this far." Ethan nodded. "I'll try, but I have no idea what she will decide." Lysara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Then let her see the truth of who you are." "That's all you can do." The throne chamber was vast, silent, and intimidating. Golden statues lined the walls watching as Ethan entered. At the far end, Queen Malith sat upon her throne, draped in flowing robes of gold and black, her gaze fixed on him. "Stand before me," she commanded. Her voice echoed across the chamber, both sharp and mesmerizing. Ethan obeyed, stepping forward slowly. His ribs ached, his bruises were fading but visible, and his hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. "You have faced my wrath, my enemies and my soldiers," the Queen began, her golden eyes piercing him. "You have endured wounds that would have broken any being, and yet you stand here. You have proven your strength is not in your body, but in your mind, your heart, and your courage. Few in this galaxy could match it." Ethan listened quietly, unsure of what was coming next. The Queen rose from her throne. She walked closer, her steps silent yet commanding, until she stood only a few paces from him. "Humans are small, fragile, disposable, yet you," she paused, studying him, "are not disposable. You have earned something that no human has ever earned in Zethera." Ethan swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I don't know what to say." "You need not speak," she said softly. "Actions speak louder. Your actions have saved this empire, protected my daughter, and proven that courage and loyalty know no species. That is why I must make a choice." She circled him, her golden eyes softening as she observed every scar, every bruise, every hint of exhaustion. "I could grant you a place in my council, make you a commander, elevate your rank beyond any human before you. You would have influence, power, and respect." Ethan's heart pounded. I don't seek power. I only want to do what's right." Malith's gaze sharpened. "And yet the world sees your strength. To deny it would be folly, and yet there is something more. A bond has formed, not from fear, not from obligation, but from respect, loyalty, and defiance. That bond calls for more than rank or position." She stepped closer still, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "I could demand your obedience, claim your life as mine, but I do not need to. You have already chosen loyalty to the princess, to justice, to the empire itself, and in doing so, you have chosen me." Ethan's mind raced. I never thought." The Queen raised a hand, silencing him. "You never thought because humans are simple in some ways. They act without expectation, without fear, without calculation of reward. That is why you are extraordinary." Princess Lysara entered the chamber quietly, standing behind Ethan. Her silver hair glimmered under the light. "Mother," she said softly, "he saved me, and the Empire. If you take him for yourself, know that it is because he earned it." Malith's golden eyes softened as she regarded her daughter. "I know, Lysara, I know. That is why this is not a mere claim. It is acknowledgement, recognition, respect, and perhaps something deeper." She turned her gaze back to Ethan. "Do you accept this, human?" Ethan looked from the Queen to the princess. His mind flashed with memories. The beating in the courtyard, the whispered thanks of Lysara, the countless lives he had saved, the trust placed in him by beings far stronger and wiser than himself. He straightened, meeting the Queen's gaze. "I accept, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because I believe in what you and your daughter stand for. I will serve you, as best I can, and I will never stop doing what is right." Malith studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Then it is done." From that moment, Ethan's life changed. He was no longer a simple human worker. He became a trusted advisor, a strategist, and a companion to both Queen and Princess. Yet the change was not only for him. The palace, the court, and even the Empire shifted in subtle ways. Alien nobles who had scoffed at his presence now approached him with caution, respect, and sometimes awe. Soldiers who had doubted him now followed his orders without hesitation. Even the Queen's generals, hardened veterans of countless wars, began to see him not as a fragile human, but as a force to be reckoned with. Lysara often spent time at his side. She learned from him, laughed with him, and sometimes simply watched him as he moved through the palace with quiet confidence. Their bond deepened, not as ruler and servant but as equals who had survived war, danger, and impossible odds together. And the queen, Malith, watched them both, her mind a complex mix of admiration, curiosity, and something she had not felt in centuries: warmth. Months passed, and Zythera flourished. The Virelians had retreated completely, intimidated by the unexpected human genius that now guided the Empire's defenses. Trade resumed, colonies thrived, and life returned to the palace, though with new rules. Humans were no longer considered weak. Ethan became the symbol of hope, courage, and strength. The story of the human who had endured the beating for the princess, who had commanded fleets, who had never bowed to fear or oppression, spread across the stars. The queen called him to her private chambers one evening. She did not sit upon her throne but waited in quiet dignity. "You have exceeded even my expectations," she said softly. "Not just as a human, but as a being of integrity and courage. There is a bond now between us, one I cannot ignore." Ethan looked at her, unsure. "I don't understand." Malith smiled faintly. "You will. In time you will understand that recognition is rare in this world, and admiration even rarer. I do not take lightly those I value. You have earned it, not through power, not through fear, but through courage, loyalty, and heart. That is why I claim you as my own." The words hung in the air. Ethan's heart raced, but he felt no fear. Only a strange sense of belonging, respect, and acknowledgement, the first he had ever truly felt in his life. Princess Lysara stood beside him, smiling softly. "You've done what no one else could, and now the queen has chosen you." Ethan bowed his head slightly, not in fear, but in understanding. "Then I accept," he said quietly. "I will serve as I always have." Malith extended her hand. "Then rise, Ethan Ward. Rise not as a servant, but as a partner, a shield, and a symbol of strength." Ethan took her hand, feeling the weight and warmth of her trust. In that moment he knew that every beating, every bruise, every act of courage had led him here. He was no longer a simple human. He was part of the Empire, respected, valued, and unbroken. The twin moons rose high over Zythera as the palace shimmered beneath their light. Outside, the city slept peacefully. Inside, a human sat beside the princess and stood beside the queen, knowing he had changed the course of an empire, not through strength of arms, but through courage, loyalty, and heart. And for the first time, Queen Malith allowed herself to smile, not as a ruler commanding fear, but as a being recognizing greatness where it had been overlooked for centuries. The empire had survived. The princess was safe, and the human who had endured the beating had earned a place not just in the palace but in history itself.